I got this comment on Instagram that struck me a little bit, and it was about that you've never heard about your PhD process, just the celebration with your family and friends, but we never got an insight from what's happening on the inside, so challenges and triumphs, and also the academic side, like what did I find in my studies and what did I learn, etc. And I want to in this video, dive into more details about how the PhD journey was for me, coming from Iceland to the US, and the challenges and the wins and the losses that are associated with that. To begin with, the reason why I pursued PhD in America is that I randomly applied to a PhD program for one of my role models in positive psychology, and when I finished that application, I was just like, why shouldn't I apply for more schools in the US? So I ended up applying for 16 schools. I got 15 no, 1 yes. And that was enough. That was PhD in Positive Organizational Psychology from Claremont Graduate University. And the program was developed by Stuart Donaldson and Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the father of flow, that the concept that most people know about. And I was going to work under Stuart Donaldson, which is one of the top figures in the field. And the reason why I wanted to do a PhD, though, was that I always had this dream of playing professionally, but never got that chance, and be academically professional and experience the world through that means. I also knew that if I want to have the impact I want to have on the world, having a PhD is one bucket of many that you would need or would help you to make that impact. Because when you have a PhD, when you are a doctor, people just listen more, and there's more responsibility of your words. So I think it was twofold or threefold, was to experience the adventure, because I always wanted to play abroad and explore the world in my soccer career, but I was doing that academically. To increase my expertise and credibility as a researcher, and I think that was the two of the most important, the reasons why I pursued the PhD. But now a little bit in the process. So in Iceland, I basically had a personal brand business, so I was coaching people in public speaking and podcasting and all that stuff that I told you about in one video before. And when I came to America, I first lived in Claremont, which was like an hour away in Los Angeles, but an hour away from Venice Beach, where I live now. And I realized that I just suddenly became a PhD student that like nobody knew. I went from having this external validation to a PhD student that was buying stuff in Target for his apartment he was renting out. And I think the main challenge for me to begin with was mattering to the world, because I felt so much that I mattered to the world and people in the world, because I was always getting this external validation that the work I did matters. I was constantly letting know through messages or through people I met in the community in Iceland. They were listening to my podcast or thanking me for influencing their lives. And suddenly went from that to just being a nobody in the US and getting no validation. And then I started questioning myself a lot, like, do I matter? And it was a really, really tough process. So I'm going to talk about challenges in terms of personal challenges, and then academic challenges, and then personal wins and academic wins in a sense. But this was a personal challenge. And how I found a solution to that challenge was that I realized that I mattered to my peers, and I realized that I mattered to my advisors and mentors, and also to people on the street, strangers. I could influence and impact their lives, and it didn't have to be like on this large scale that I was doing. I could also do it in my everyday action, and I learned that through the hard thing of not mattering. And I think there was one moment that I would like to talk about as well, was I totally broke down. Was after like 9 months or something, and I was just walking outside talking to my friend, and then I totally broke down, because I was defining myself as this coach and public speaker, and I wasn't getting opportunities to do that, so it felt kind of inauthentic and fake, and my identity was a really bit scrambled. But what he told me was to have an identity funeral, so I should bury coach and public speaker and podcaster Becky, and allow researcher Becky to flourish, to go in a research cave, just like Batman does in the Batcave, just develop my skills, increase my expertise, and then come out of the cave and have the impact I wanted to have. And that was it sounded pretty epic to me, and helped me a lot to bury the aspect of me that I wasn't getting opportunity to show to the world, and allowing new aspects of me arise. And sometimes you have to say goodbye to old parts of yourself, which can be also really, really hard. Second most challenging thing was finding your friends. It took me like 9 months or like a year to find my people. It wasn't that I wasn't invited to stuff, but just finding really the people I vibed with. And because some people I didn't vibe with and I don't want to spend my time with them, so it was not their problem or people or not me, it was me problem. I didn't want to spend my time with all the people. But it was so rewarding when I just had my close circle of friends in the school and in the community that made it all worth it to wait and not hang around with the wrong people. And at the time, like for the first year, maybe books and research were just my best friends. So I read probably in the first year around like 40 books or something. And I read so many studies and I did so many projects among the AI well-being codes that I developed in my study and was my main PhD dissertation. We developed the foundation of that. So I was super productive when I lived in Claremont and didn't have many friends. I also think that one of the challenges was finances. So I went from having the CEO salaries in Iceland to basically, I got a 60% scholarship, so I was paying probably around 2 million, yeah, that's Icelandic, yeah. $12,000 per semester and had to do that over 4 semesters. And because I had 60% scholarship. And the thing that bugged me a little bit was that I wasn't allowed to work for myself while I was studying, so I had to work for somebody else. And I kind of didn't want to do that. Of course, it's good for experience, but I kind of just wanted to work for my own. So my strategy was to allocated a lot of money and saved a lot of money before I went. And then I was working at the research lab. And then I took a little bit of student loans. I got some support. And then I was working a little bit. I was coaching some people in Iceland in between. And when the school wasn't, I was also doing some work. So the financial resources came from many aspects, but it was definitely really hard to go from having really good salaries to having just minus 10, 20,000 on your bank account per semester or more, because then you have to pay for the living expenses and rent and all of that stuff. So I think that was really, really hard. In terms of the academic stuff, academia is a really, really slow process. So first I was really, really impatient, but then I learned that academia is just a long process. So what you have to do is that you have to find the study you want to do, the idea of the study, and then you have to go into the literature and read maybe 200 papers or something on that topic. And you have to find a gap that your research can come in, and then you have to create a proposal based on the research, how you're going to fill in the gap with your research. Then you have to find participants, and then you have to ensure the response, then you have to get the data, and then you have to clean the data, you have to analyze the data, and then write out the paper. And when you've finished writing off the paper, you have to find a journal that suits your paper, and then submit it to a journal which will most likely reject it, and then learn from the feedback you got there and submit it to another journal. And this is just a really, really slow and hard process. So it definitely taught me to develop patience and respect for PhD students and researchers, because it's a really hard and long and difficult process that you definitely have to have a lot of determination. The D in PhD is determination. For me, coming from Iceland, talking like skill level, it was hard for me. I remember my first presentation, which was speaking like 3 or 4 minutes, part of a 12-minute presentation in organizational behavior, if I remember correctly. And it was just so hard for me because I'm a public speaker. I'd spoken probably 120 times in front of people, but articulating complex scientific ideas and research language and statistical language was just really hard for me to articulate. And I just remember the first speech, and it was probably terrible, but I was so nervous in the class. And I think learning how to read, understand, and write in academic language in English was definitely a big challenge for me. And I also think the balance, when you come into a new school or new workplace, or let's take the academic community in this case, it's really, I think you should be humble at the beginning, listen much, ask much questions, trying to learn from people, but at the same time you want to demonstrate your skill and leadership and all of that. So I think for me, having the balance of acknowledging that I'm surrounded by super intelligent people and taking in their ideas, I also have great ideas and I'm super intelligent, so the balance of taking the ideas of them into consideration, but also voicing my opinions and ideas and being like kind of firm on them. I think that was a bit challenging for me, and I stayed reserved in the first year, and then I just got feedback from my mentor was that she just wished that I talked more, because she knew how much experience and skills and knowledge I had, and she said it would be a lack to the classroom and to the world if I wouldn't express myself more, so I started doing that a little bit more. I think one practical challenge was that I was promised data from Iceland, working with an individual from Iceland, and basically probably experienced being like gaslighted, particular term in my life, when I was promised data for over a year, and then after a year it was just no, we're not going to do this, we can't get the data, and not see that person didn't respond to me. And it was really, really hard because I was in my timeline of graduating my PhD for 3 years in a new culture, and these things have to go in a certain way. But when you're doing a PhD, you can control some things, but some things are a little bit more or less out of your control. Like, let's say, for example, in this case, data collections, you're promised a data collection, and then it might be delayed over a year, which is kind of rough. That's a pretty rough process of that you can't control, and sometimes you have to turn in, get feedback from advisors, and advisors maybe they have 2 weeks, but sometimes they take months of giving you a feedback back. So it's not everything is not in your control in a sense when you're doing a PhD, so you can't always control the timeline. But in this case, I just decided to take it in my own hands, and I gathered the data myself, which probably delayed my PhD for a while, but that was definitely a challenge as well, and a challenge that many PhD students confront. I think one of the challenges as well is that you're so excited to begin with. You go into a PhD program, you want to win the role, then you kind of say yes to everything. You're kind of understanding and discovering your interests. So if you say yes to everything, you're in many projects. And if you do that, you kind of delay your own personal research. So I think it's a fine line between saying yes to things that you're excited about, but also saying no to things that are not essential to what you're doing in your PhD. But I said almost yes to everything, and said yes to a research of researching tattoo prejudice against people in a really big company in America, or a global company, international company. And I ended up taking 30 interviews, 6 in the morning, with people from this company across levels. Definitely took a lot out of me and took my focus from my main research at that time. And I kind of, when you're feeling, then you say yes to something, and then you shouldn't be doing it, that I was experiencing that at the same time. So I definitely choose what I work with and not say yes to everything while you are excited, because you just have limited resources in terms of your effort, attention, energy. So I had to rely a lot on what we call HERO. So it's hope, and hope is basically having goals, having pathways to achieve them, and the agency of following that path. I had to have optimism, so looking at the glass, having a positive outlook on the future, looking at the glass half full rather than half empty. Efficacy, which is believing I could put in the effort to succeed. So believing if I put in the effort, I would get my PhD at the end. And resilience, I had to leverage social support, mindset, meaning making of selling myself that this was worth it, and that while I'm not connected with my purpose deeply now, I will in the future, and this will help me in the future. So you definitely have to have a lot of hope, a lot of hero. So I just want to know that before. But in terms of the wins or the triumphs, definitely one big thing was that on the side, so when I was in Claremont, we were developing this AI codes, and we competed in a competition called Kravis competition, the Drucker School, and Peter Drucker was one of the most influential manager or researcher managing in the world, and Drucker School is in Claremont Graduate University. So it was entrepreneurial research, so you just were going to pitch an idea and have the business understanding of that idea and the practical aspect of it, and also the purpose behind it. So you sent in a pitch, and then you were delivering the pitch in 4 minutes or 6 minutes in front of successful entrepreneurs, in front of 4 judges. And me and my squad, or Danny is a friend of mine that I met, he's in the same program, the first person I talked to in the school, he's super smart. And Augusto is a guy, also one of my best friends here in America, that I met at International Student Day in Claremont. And we decided to compete in this competition together with an AI well-being coach that helps you assess your well-being and then develop ways to improve it in a scientific, evidence-based manner by talking to a machine. And we won that. And we got 10K in funding for moving on with the idea. And that was so meaningful. I felt this competition spirit by winning with other people. I have won something myself, but nothing beats working hard and winning with people that you care about. That was basically definitely one of the highlights of the PhD journey, although it didn't relate to the PhD at the beginning. But then this basically AI well-being course that we started developing was my main PhD dissertation, but I will talk about that later. I think Also, some highlights is my network. I would say like the colleagues I had, the peers I was working with, all super smart people, and it was just so meaningful to go through this process with them, being able to get support from them and also support them and also learn from them because they're so incredibly smart and they're an expert in one idea, whether that's pro-social behavior, it's leadership, it's performance, it's AI, so I think that was a big part. I also think, I think also my mentor, so Stuart Donaldson, my advisor, he was just so helping in the process. He knew my plan, he understood me so much, gave me so much autonomy and was always supporting with my ideas. And my mentor called Jamie Shapiro, she's a super successful businesswoman. I look up to her so much and I've learned so much from her. Has this company called Executive EC, where she helps Fortune 100 executives to develop their well-being and leadership. And also Gene Nakamura, which is a big figure in the field of positive psychology, among many more. So I got access to a lot of mentors and colleagues. Also gained friends from life, Danny and Augusto, they're friends from life. We're together with developing a company now, and we always meet every week. So you gain friends for life, they become your coworkers. I think also the highlights were also going to conferences and just geeking out, both presenting your studies, but also learning and talking the same language with people that you're just learning out about a specific topic in the domain of positive psychology or well-being or coaching, and people just, they want to be there and they're so interested in it, and you can just geek out all day and just connect with those people who you have talked with online and stuff. And I think conferences are going on several places in the US, but also going to Austria and many things, so it was definitely a highlight. The oral exam was definitely a highlight for me. So when you do an oral exam, they're testing the breadth of your knowledge, but also your depth of your expertise. So I had to know everything that I had studied in the courses of the PhD, like the breadth of it, so in detail. So I had to, like, if I was making an argument for something, I had to name and cite the source. So like Olafsson 2024 or Barbara Fredriksson 1999. So I had to remember where I was, when I was talking, I had to have the citations in my mind where I got the citations. When I talked to you before about presenting in class during my first semester and seeing me on the oral exam talking to my committee, 3 people who are expert in my area, and just asking me questions and being able to fully articulate the things I was studying and learning over 2 hours to an expert with scientific language. That was definitely a highlight for me, and just looking at the first presentation and looking at me being articulate at the oral exam was so deeply rewarding, and just reminds you of that although you're bad at something or not good at something to begin with, if you just train it, you practice it, you will become a master in it one day. And that was really deeply fulfilling. I think the defense was also so meaningful. I mean, when you defend, you become an official doctor after the defense. And in the defense, you're basically talking about your research, and you're basically teaching the people, whether that's your committee, which are 4 people, or just the general public or your peers, and they're just basically there to listen to you, to learn from you, and you are basically an expert. So the tables have not turned, but you're treated as an equal. So it's not like my committee was here and I was here. I was basically teaching them, and they were asking me some tough questions to respond to that. And I got some tough questions, and I got a little bit emotional when I finished my speech, because I realized that, yeah, I'll give myself some credit for my discipline and for putting in the work and not giving up. But there's always people on the way, my friends and family and mentors, that have just come unexpectedly in my life. And I've always seen something within me that I didn't see and helped me to make that a reality. So there was one scientist in Iceland that told me before I applied to PhD programs in America, I didn't know what a PhD was 5 years ago. And she told me, Becky, she's the most successful scientist in Iceland. And I was coaching her, and she told me after 15 sessions or something, she said, Becky, I think you should do a PhD, and I think you should do it in America. I was just like, what is a PhD? So she saw something in me that I didn't see already. And I realized at that moment in my PhD that I'm not self-made. It's people around me that helped me so much in my life, and I'm just so grateful for that. And I think being a doctor is a great feeling. You get used to it after 2 days and you kind of forget it. So I don't feel like I've changed internally, but I do think that I will have more weight on my words and that other people will experience me differently. So I have to be also, words follow responsibility, but I'm glad that I'm officially a doctor now. I think also getting some grants funding from the school, from outside sources, being a Leifur Eriksson fellow, so I got a lot of funding that helped me. And being kind of this thought leader in AI coaching. So AI coaching is using machines to help you reach your goals, increase your well-being, your leadership skills, etc. And I was getting invited to talk all around the world to talk on AI coaching and what is the science behind it and what are the benefits of it and what is the ethical consideration that we have to take into the picture. And I was just speaking in the UK, I was speaking in Portugal, I was speaking in the US, and it was just so nice and fun to know so much about some topic that I talked about in 2 years, and being able to be an expert or something and educating people about something then they don't know nothing about. So I do think that was a highlight as well. I want to jump a little bit into the basic finding of my own personal research and any fun findings that I thought. Talking about research, so when I didn't feel like I mattered when I first came to the US, sometimes your research interest is like your interest that you're going through. So I want to study if mattering predicts meaningful work. And meaningful work is just feeling like your work doesn't suck, that it contributes to something beyond yourself, and that you're not waiting until the weekend comes, you just find significance in being at work. And I was motivated of helping people understand in some ways on which factors would help people experience meaningful work, because I think work shouldn't be a means, because you spend so much time there, 8 hours per day on average. I think work shouldn't be that you're waiting until you get finished. I think there are some factors that can make that time where you are in work way more meaningful to you, whether that's your coworker or your leader or the people, the mission, and how you contribute to something beyond yourself. So I want to assess whether mattering, like feeling valued and adding value to your supervisor, co-workers or beneficiaries, which are the end users of your products or services, that would basically predict meaningful. And I also want to assess which of those would have the strongest prediction of meaningful work. So I did this study on teachers in Iceland, so I gathered around 200 people, and basically what I found that mattering to your supervisor, co-worker, and beneficiaries all significantly predicted meaningful work, so they all seemed to matter. But the mattering to co-workers was most important and was significantly a stronger predictor of meaningful work compared to beneficiaries and to your supervisor. So my suggestion for that research based on teachers in Iceland was that if you want to make your work meaningful, this is of course correlational. One way of doing that would to add value and feel valued by your coworkers. So adding value is just helping them with basic tasks or making their work better, but also you can help your coworkers feel more valued by appreciating them and maybe doing something from them or letting them know that you appreciate their work. So that was kind of a surprise, because I thought that beneficiaries would be, so the students and the parents of the students, which would matter the most, but it came as a little bit surprise to me that mattering to your coworkers, basically that makes work meaningful. So if you want to make your work meaningful, I know I can't generalize from one study. Adding value to your coworkers seems to be, and feeling valued by them seems to be really, really important in teacher domain. Then I did an AI coaching systematic review. So it basically works in that way that you have some criteria of the studies you're searching for, and then you go to all of the databases and research, and then you look for studies that follow this criteria, and you keep them in if they have all of the criteria, and you keep them out if they fail on one criteria. So now we wanted to understand how the research was going on in AI coaching. And so I was working with 2 colleagues there as well. And basically what we found 15 studies, which is not a lot. But basically what we found in AI coaching is basically using, like I said earlier, using machines to help you increase your performance, well-being, leadership skills, etc. And the most interesting finding we found is that there are studies that show that AI coaches can help you reach your goals. For example, there's a study that showed over 9 months that an AI coach who's developing goal setting is comparable to a human coach that is also working on helping people reach their goals, so goal attainment over 9 months. They both have a large effect on goal attainment over 9 months. And that was really interesting to me to find. Also, there's an AI coach developed in cognitive behavioral therapy and developing psychological resources. that increased resilience among participants. Also among cancer survivors, there was an AI physical activity coach that helped cancer survivors increase their step count over 4 weeks. So group that was with the AI coach, they had 3,000 steps per day compared to the people who did just treatment as usual, so getting information by reading and education, they had 1,000 steps. So that was showing that AI coaching can be effective, and that was really, really interesting for me. And the part that I found really interesting about this review is also that was qualitative data showing that in AI coaching, one of the themes that's been happening in AI coaching and AI therapy and using like AI chatbots is that people feel that the machine doesn't judge them, so they're more willing to self-disclose. So they say that I could tell the AI coach everything about myself because I wasn't afraid that I was a person behind there judging me. So I think that's also one of the interesting things about AI coaching and AI therapy is maybe it helps people to open up more. Maybe it's the threshold of going into real coaching or real therapy. So overall, I found in that paper that AI coaching is still like an emerging field, but a really interesting one. And also this review was a good foundation of my own study that I did. So we developed this AI well-being coaching. I won't go into detail, but it was based on the 9 building blocks of well-being that I will go into in more detail later. And it was basically, you assessed your well-being in 9 dimensions, then you picked one of those to work on. And then we took your data about you, so what your name was, how old are you, what were your interests, where do you live. And then we asked you questions about, like, for instance, just positive emotions, like what brings you positive emotions, and then you would write about what brings you positive emotions. And then what detracts you from positive emotions, what detracts you from experiencing positive emotion, and then you write like being in my phone, scrolling, etc. And then basically we take that information and then the AI gives you a report and then recommends 4 activities for you to do. And you can pick those activities or just set a new goal around positive emotions. And then you talk to a chatbot. And what we did, we helped the AI coach help people from having a vague activity like writing down what you're grateful for to specific, measurable, challenging and timely goal. So instead of being just more writing things you're grateful for, then like on each morning I'm going to write 3 things that I'm grateful for and why for 5 minutes. And I'm going to do that for 3 months, and I'm going to track my progress by always having it in Google Calendar. So basically helping them to make it from awake to a really practical goal. And then what we did, that after the user does that, they have to go through why they want to reach that goal. And this is all based on the goal setting literature. So having the purpose behind the goal, so why do I want to be more grateful and enhance my positive emotions? Like, it's because I'm more happy when I do, I'm a better partner, I'm more resilient, etc. Identifying obstacles from doing the task and plans to overcome them or prevent them. So an obstacle might be I'll forget it. A plan might be to put my alarm on 7 a.m. every morning so I remind myself to do that task. That being said, I got 140 people to participate in my study, so it was a randomized controlled trial. So one group was in the AI well-being coach and the other group was interacting with Cloud AI, which is a general AI cloud models. And they just got a prompt to learn about the PERMA4 model, which is the 9 building blocks of well-being, and also learning about goal setting. And they're reflecting on these building blocks and how to enhance them in their own life. And the reason why I had that was that I wanted to mimic the activity of talking to an AI. So I had assessed people, employees from the US who are working full-time. And one of the most interesting part I found is that firstly there was no difference between the models, but the most important part I want to mention here is that we also assessed commitment, so how committed you are to the coaching process and doing the tasks. We also measured engagement, so how much time you spent on working with the AI coach. And this study was done over 4 weeks, so they had to respond to one survey and interacting with the AI coach in half an hour, and then respond to another survey after a week, and then do that over 4 weeks. So I had 5 measurements periods. And mediator, so-called, and what we measured as well was, I said, commitment, engagement, and then working alliance. And working alliance is one of the most important ingredients in therapy and coaching. It is about how aligned you and your coachee, or you and your coach or your therapist is, how much you like the coach, basically, how you respect them, and how much you aligned on the tasks and goals you have coming in therapy and coaching, the task in between sessions and the goals with the therapy. So if you align on those, you're probably going to be successful in your therapy and coaching process. But what we found when we took both groups together and we just did an exploratory analysis, what it's called. So we took all the 150 participants together and we saw that an interesting trend in engagement. And it was that women, higher educated, higher income, and white people, they started higher engagement. So they interacted for a longer time with the AI codes. But through those 4 weeks, they decreased in their engagement and non-white men, lower income and lower educated individual used it more. And that's the reason, because we can scale coaches and therapists with AI coaching. And this is, for example, people who don't afford coaching, AI coaching is really good for them. And because you can get it nearly for free. And it's also really accessible, so you can talk to your AI coach at 2 a.m. in the morning, but you couldn't do that with a human coach. But that was a really interesting finding. And one theory I have with men is that men tend to seek help less than women in like professional health, so going to a therapist or psychologist. But an AI coach or an AI coach is not a person, it's a thing. And on average, men are more interested in things than people. And my hypothesis, like that I'm expecting, and this is not like something that future researchers have to discover, is that I think men will end up using AI coaching more because they feel like they're talking to a machine and not a person. Which is, as I say, future studies have to figure that out, but that's one hypothesis I have, because again, it lowers the threshold of feeling that there's nobody judging you on the other side. And if men are less seeking therapy, and then maybe this could be the initial step for them to talk to a machine about their problems. There are many ethical considerations with AI coaching and AI therapy that I won't go into. But then also what I found is that working alliance task and bond and commitment predicted well-being over time. So my outcome variable was well-being, so both subjective well-being, which is life satisfaction, so how satisfied you're with your life as a whole. Also the PERMA4 building blocks. So yeah, I'll just tell you: positive emotions, engagement, relationship, meaning, accomplishment, environment, mindset, physical health, and economic security. So these were 2 variables that we measured at each time. So basically, in terms of the 9 building blocks, then how much the AI coach seemed to help people have alliance with the task they were doing in between the weekly session. And they also seemed to like the AI coach, which was really, really surprising. But findings with the commitment wasn't that surprising, because commitment is a really important variable in coaching and therapy. The last study I want to talk about is we did a qualitative study with 32 positive psychology entrepreneurs, meaning we went out there and found successful people who build businesses based on coaching and positive psychology, like through consulting, organizational development, executive coaching, speaking, podcast, etc. And we interviewed 4 people and basically asked them what were their obstacles, strategies, resources and skills they need to have to go from this academic and being educated in a particular thing and developing that into a business. And we're publishing this paper now in the Journal of Positive Psychology, so I'm really, really interested about it, and I can put it maybe in the description if it's there when I post this video. But what we found is that just high level strategies, obviously, some of it wasn't a surprise, but the strategy that these people used, these super successful people used, was to find a gap in the market and then develop services based on that gap. And then also, instead of having specific products or services, working with companies through like well-being programs or training, working with them and co-creating basically their services. So instead of saying like, this is what I do and take it or leave it, you can are adjustable to your clients and your clients' needs. And that's really important as well. I think the resources were definitely, one part was your network. So having access to highly influential mentors that you can learn from, both mentors that were in your life, but also mentors that are not in your life and you don't know, but you've learned from them. Also a network in terms of the community. So these people went to programs in academia, and a lot of people in graduate school or college, they go out in the world and do something. So it's really important to both, you can maybe get services from them, but you also can get the support from them because they might be doing something similar as you. So that was definitely important. And also how supportive, having a supportive family or a spouse or friends that helped you and helped you through the process basically. So there was some woman that was talking about that the man was home having the kids and while she was out there doing the work. So having a support from family was really important in terms of resources. and I'm just touching high level. And the skills were many. One of them was definitely, also in terms of the researchers having being educated and having the knowledge and tools on how to deliver the mechanism that they were being trained at their education. Because there's one thing on knowing and stuff, and another thing transferring it into products or services that will help people. And I thought that was a really good skill. And then the skills that they developed that we called skills was basically similar to the hero mindset I was talking about you before. They were applying what they learned in the positive psychology program to their own life. So they learned that finding out their character strengths and leaning on them was really, really important, doing what energizes you, and also having a lot of hope and efficacy. And because a lot of them had doubts in the beginning, and they kind of had to make counter arguments to the voice in their head and when they wanted to give up, etc. And then there were basic skills like communicating, storytelling, public speaking, being able to coach, etc. But I didn't want to go too much detail into this study, as probably it's probably a really long video. But I'm almost finished, so I'm just going to talk about the top advice I would give to people who are doing a PhD. I would say write every day for 2 to 3 hours. Like, don't be stuck in reading mode. At one point, you just have to open the computer and start writing. And the best way to do that is, just have 2 or 3 hours blocked in your calendar in the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, wherever it suits you the best, and treat that time and protect it like it's your baby. And that's time for just you, because if you're being productive in that period, the PhD will be no problem for you, because you're going to be super productive in that time, and it doesn't have to consume your life 100%. And if you are just 100% effective for 3 hours, you can be more effective and you'll do it for 50% over 3 days. And I would say set up time also to read research articles, and don't just read them passively, like criticize them. Just note what is good about the paper, what could have done better, how would you do this better, how does this relate to your own research. So and when you are retrieving the research article, try writing, don't just read it again. You remember both and you increase your memory by writing down what you just learned, which is really important. I think at the beginning, just establish yourself in the academic community. So I met with all of the professors and some faculty members at my school just to develop a relationship with them, because you never know what projects they're working on, what interests they have, what they can teach you about the program or your journey, and if you need them in the future, and just develop a relationship with them, but also with peers. If you see some peers that you align really well with, develop some time with them, and whether that's going over research or just having one drink or a dinner or all that. I think because not only in the PhD will help you, but it will also develop your network outside of the PhD, and I would definitely do that. Make the most out of the process and just let go of being in a rush. This is the only time in your life that you're going to have so much time on just diving into a specific topic and being an expert in it. And you want to savor that moment, and you want to enjoy being able to acquire knowledge that you will know for the rest of your life, and being able to give yourself just permission to do that. I think that's really important, and just give it your best. Don't just go through it to just get the job. Just do each course 100%, an article 100%, leave everything behind, and don't have this perception of the program that, I'm just going to finish this course so I can get that job. I'm going to finish the PhD to get that job. Find something. You have to find something that's interesting to you. Find some problem that you care about, what annoys you. Think about that and try to find how you can provide a solution to that problem, or start off a solution to that problem by doing research or something that interests you. Because if you're not fighting for a problem or nothing interests you, your PhD is going to be really, really hard. I also think set clear goals out when you're starting the program. I had a goal, I wanted to graduate after 3 years. And when you have goals and then you set up plans to achieve them, you see the pathways of what you need to do and each step of the way to achieve the goal in 3 years. So outline the path, if it's 5 years, it's 5 years, if it's 7 years, it's 7 years. And then outline what do you need to do in those months or years before, so you get closer to reaching that goals, and just be really, really crystal clear about that. And then also try to identify why you're doing this and the obstacles that could prevent you from keeping that, following that plan and reaching that goal, a potential solution to those. And during rejection, I think that's one of the most important parts in the PhD, is just you're constantly being rejected. Ideas get rejected, or project that you want to work on, you get rejected. The grant that you apply to, you get rejected. When you submit your study, finally, you will get rejected. So it's a full process of rejection, and you just have to keep on going, and you just have to look at rejection as a fuel to kick rejection in the ass and just know that you will succeed and just do whatever needs to fix and do the process again until you won't be rejected. And seek help, support from family or basically it's best to went with like in your research lab or with your peers. It's best to talk about and maybe celebrate rejections and make a little bit humor out of that situation. Collaborate with people. You don't have to do this whole process alone. Research is a collaborative process and you're surprised by how many people are willing to work with you on your research, helping you through that process and having a part of it. And I think that was one of the reasons I had so many great peers that we worked on together with tasks and that speeded up my PhD, and it was so fun to work with other people and fun to give other people credit. And you're also a leader if you have any research and you want to get other people on. So work with other people, don't be afraid of that, you don't have to do it all. And yeah, as I said earlier, develop hero, hope, efficacy, resilience and optimism. I think I want to end it by saying that I went into the PhD program with many reasons, not just to get a PhD, but also that I told you in the beginning. But I had this motivation, extreme belief that I could change the world on a large scale. And I went into the PhD thinking I was going to do studies that would change the world, like on a really, really big scale. And I realized that the world is big and complex, and it takes the time to change the world. And I got a little bit humbled by the process that instead of trying to change the world on a big scale, change the world by every small action that you put out in the world, whether that's research, whether that's conversation, whether that's one tasks. And those accumulation of these tasks or these actions in your world will help you to change the world on a big scale. So I think I became a little bit humble about how much I can change the world on a big scale and how that doesn't always have to be something big. It also can be something smaller that accumulates over time and then you're changing the world. So I think I'm a little bit more humble after this process and know that one research isn't going to change the world, but doing that over the course of a life can change the world, or doing the things that you're passionate about over your life can change the world. And yeah, I was a little bit, because I was so motivated and driven always to change the world, so I'm kind of rethinking that through at the moment, because now I just genuinely want to be a good person and contribute to something beyond myself and do that slowly but surely and have the maximum impact I can make. But I don't feel motivated or pressured or having this big impact, but I know I will one day just by following the small steps. I feel the same after the PhD, like the doctor. I'm a doctor now, but I don't think that I'm the same person. I forgot it after like 2 days. It was so fun having the title and I have to remind myself of that. And joking about that, I won't answer people if they don't call me a doctor, but maybe the external world perceives me otherwise, and I think so. I think you have a weight when you have a PhD and a doctor behind your name. And I'm extremely grateful about the process. I'm grateful for myself that I put in this work and that I did it. I did not regret it. I would do it all over again. And I have many reasons for that I won't go in. And it just, taught me to be patient and work with people and seeing tasks and what I need to do and why I want to do it, and like project management as well. And I think what I learned also that a lot of my athletic mindset just transferred to the academic mindset. So if you've ever been an athlete, you just transfer the athletic mindset to the PhD or to the work, etc. But I'm talking too much probably now. It's probably too long. I hope that I brought a fine balance between being detailed but not too detailed, explaining things without over-explaining things. But doing a PhD, or if you've done a PhD, I'm happy to talk and just reach out if you have some questions. But keep crushing it, don't give up, keep putting in the work. You will succeed one day. Thank you.